Room service at 2:31 a.m. The second fork wasn't mine. I'm not jealous of bodies, I'm jealous of arrangements. Bodies tell the truth if you stop staging them. Arrangements decide what truth is allowed to arrive. At 2:31 a.m., my inbox glowed with the politeness of a maitre d'. Room service delivered, the subject line said. Property, the Huxley River side. Under the item list was a line that felt like a hand I didn't invite. Cutlery, too. I wasn't at the Huxley. Noah had texted at 11:40 p.m., still at the studio. Don't wait up. It was the kind of message a man sends when he believes an hour can be rehearsed into decency. I could have called. Instead, I turned the phone face down and let the ceiling do its slow impersonation of calm. I boiled water because water doesn't have opinions and I needed to borrow that. On the counter, the email kept its smile. 2 forks is a sentence. I hate sentences that skip the verb. The lock cleared its throat at 3:08. Noah came in with his hoodie open and the kind of fatigue that wants nouns more than verbs. He kissed the air near my cheek, our administrative truce, and reached for the mug I had already filled. Long night, he said, which is either a confession or a weather report. In the reflection on the window, I saw the edge of a white napkin peeking from his pocket like a dare. He noticed me noticing and tugged it free. They wrapped a sandwich to go, he said, which is not how napkins travel. I slid the phone across the counter with the room service email open. The Huxley says you like soup at impossible hours. He rubbed his thumb over the screen as if the glass could be warmed into a different truth. I was there, he said, because lying is a craft he never applied for and refuses to practice. Aaron needed a place to debrief. His residency gave him a hotel and an audience who wanted their breath accounted for. The studio felt like a jar with the lid on. Aaron of the residency, I said. He and Noah had met a month ago when the theater decided intimacy needed a coach and honesty needed a spectator. Aaron specialized in teaching mouth and gaze how to make a lie feel like oxygen. He stopped by the apartment twice for tea and a language lesson. I had caught his eyes once reading our hallway like a paragraph. Did the jar have 2 spoons? I asked, careful as a man testing ice. The soup had heat, he said, the corner of his mouth admitting he knew better. He set the phone down like a guilty instrument and placed both palms flat on the table, the way our therapist taught us when we wanted to give words somewhere to land. Do you want the why or the who first? Why, I said, because Matt, my emergency adult, who counts my panic like calories, would have kicked me under the table if I asked for names before reasons. Because the part wasn't coming, Noah said, sitting. Because the studio smelled like old wood and stalled out decisions. Because Aaron has a way of standing in a room that makes it want to move. Because I needed to hear a track in a place that didn't remember me. Because I thought soup could be a neutral noun. Soup is never neutral, I said. It's a bowl with a thesis. He laughed, the small kind he thinks is self-defense and is. He reached for me, but I didn't give him my hand. I gave him the space we call later. He nodded as if later had sent an RSVP and went to shower, which is not a moral but a system. At noon the next day, I met Matt at our place with the linen napkins that get everything wrong with such dignity you forgive them. I showed him the email because I always show him the artifact first, like a parishioner passing the plate. He listened with his head tilted, the way a mechanic does when a rattle wants to be a symphony. Ask why you did, he said. If the who insists on being said out loud, make sure it's the second word, not the first. Otherwise, you give the night editorial rights. I went home with his permission to be particular. Noah was there, hair damp, clean in a way post-river air can't accomplish. He put his palms on the table again. Which question do you want to land? He had showered with the door open, a small kind of oath. "Did you kiss him?" I asked, breaking Matt's rule on purpose, because the mouth was the map I kept assigning meaning to, and I was tired of pretending cartography was someone else's hobby. Noah's eyes did the smallest courageous thing I've ever seen. "No," he said, and he said it in a voice that didn't ask for credit. I fed him from a fork I shouldn't have requested. He said my wrists looked like grammar. I watched his mouth when he said it. I asked if he wanted sugar with his tea. He said he knew how to be sweet without help. We were theatrical. We were almost. Almost took longer than it needed to. "I hate how sane that sounds," I said, and then I leaned across the table because I am tired of being better at mercy than at want. His mouth met mine without rehearsal. It tasted like mint and whatever words do when they regret getting there late. We agreed on two things without writing them under the orange magnet on the fridge. If a hotel learns our names, it has to hear them in the same accent. If we practice danger, we do it somewhere we can show our hands without calling it theater. Of course, the world wanted to test us the way teachers like to, with a quiz offered by coincidence. Aaron texted a week later, a location pin for the Huxley, a sentence so casual it had to be bold. "Come hear the quiet," he wrote. He didn't add a winking dot. He didn't have to. The blue of the pin tried to charm me. I disliked myself for appreciating typography at such a moment. "I'm going," Noah said as soon as I showed him the screen. "With you or without, I prefer with." He just stood there, which is the bravest thing anyone can do in a room that used to specialize in excuses. The elevator at the Huxley had 4 mirrors and a memory. I counted myself 4 times on the way up, my posture expecting a fight and wanting a couch, my mouth practicing sentences I promised not to use. The doors opened onto a hallway that smelled like corrected hours. The suite door was ajar. Aaron held it with 2 fingers and greeted us with the indiscipline of someone who had learned to write apologies on skin. The room was boring on purpose. 2 armchairs that looked like they wanted to be saved, a window that decided to audition for the role of Horizon, a tray on the low table with a steel cloche still wearing its sheen. 2 forks gleamed there, as if the email needed a physical body to complete the spell. "You came," Aaron said, and the word landed like an invitation that had practiced not sounding impressed. "We did," I said, "set the scene." He smiled and did not stand between us. He stood with us, one triangle edge being a person I did not want to find a title for. "I want to hear what you call intimacy when nobody paid to watch," he said. "I want to know if a track can learn your bodies without the theater telling it where to be brave." Noah looked at me in the mirror across from the window, not at Aaron, and I recognized the look that started every decision we'd ever broken and forgiven. "We came to test our rules," he said. "We didn't come to star in your workshop." Aaron raised his hands as if we'd asked for a hymn. "Then let me be the quiet." We sat, Noah in the left chair, me in the right, Aaron floating somewhere that made the air behave. Noah hit play on his phone, and the room filled with a low insistence, a bass line that felt like a hand learning its job. He closed his eyes, and I watched his throat do what it always does when he believes he's safe. Aaron took exactly 1 step forward and adjusted how Noah's jaw had decided to define attentive. 2 fingers, a correction, a hum of approval. Then he looked at me and shook his head once barely. "You do breath like a man expecting rain," he said. "Let it happen." He said it without touching me, and I wanted to be touched anyway. Noah reached across the small space between the chairs and put his hand on my knee. It was a movement we had done 1,000 times, and none of them felt like this one. The track lifted itself into a kind of argument without words. I leaned forward. He did too. The kiss, when it arrived, was not a cure. It was a screw turned half a rotation, permission tightening instead of loosening. I felt the heat of Aaron's presence at the edge of my awareness and refused to look. Some gestures are explicit because they choose to be, not because they have to be naked. Fingers along the jaw, a thumb under a lower lip, the kind of breath you have to earn rather than steal. We kissed like two men who know the geometry of each other and were relearning its arithmetic. Aaron murmured eyes first from somewhere that wasn't a command, and I obeyed not because he said it, but because Noah's pupils had already decided to be clocks again. We did not treat the suite like a church. We did not kneel for forgiveness. We let our mouths perform the honest work of apology and want. Aaron never touched us beyond those two fingers, that one tilt. His attention felt like a hand on the back of the neck that kept the room from drafting us into the wrong army. The second fork on the tray stayed where it was, gleaming like a promise that had learned its place. When the track ended, we sat with the kind of quiet that would embarrass on stage and save you in a kitchen. Aaron didn't clap. He put the cloche back over the food as if mercy came with lids. "You were brave," he said to Noah. "You were specific," he said to me. "You will always be better together than clever apart." He smiled without teeth. "You can ask me to leave now." So we did. The door clicked with the kind of kindness that makes good hotels rich. We stayed another 10 minutes with the city pretending it didn't care whether we added $150 to the bill just by breathing there. Noah leaned his head back against the chair and looked at me upside down like a child. "Do you want to hate me now or later?" he asked. "I'd prefer now. I like how you come back from it." I stood, crossed the space, and pressed my mouth to the corner of his, where the smile ends and the true part begins. He grabbed my belt and pulled, slow, the way a man politely asks gravity to mind its job. We did nothing the staff would have to talk about at breakfast. We did everything I will remember when a kinder hour wants credit. We left separately because some fictions deserve the courtesy. I rode the elevator down with the email still open, and the line about cutlery sitting there like a joke the night thought it was allowed to make. I slipped my phone into my pocket and watched my face reflect into 4. We were men practicing a better introduction to ourselves. Noah arrived home 20 minutes after me with a bag of pastries he had bought to bribe the morning into being generous. The orange magnet on the fridge held our rules with the bored dignity of a nurse who has seen it all. We didn't add a sentence. We didn't erase one. We made coffee at the right hour and filmed it because some rituals keep roofs over our heads. He slid his hand into the frame, palm to mine without touching. "Here," he said, and I believed him without auditioning for suspicion. Later, because brains are teenagers who dare you to touch bruises, I opened the email again and stared at cutlery. 2. Until it learned to be smaller than the story I had cast it in. I deleted it and felt like a man letting go of a rope that had kept him closer to the wrong shore. We saw Aaron one more time in the back row at our show, the part where Noah's track was allowed to breathe alongside a scene that deserved it. He nodded once when the lights came up, approval for a moment that had chosen our mouths without asking the audience to applaud. He didn't text afterward. Neither did we. The city makes a lot of rooms that want credit for teaching you your name. Some of them are helpful. Some of them just have better napkins. If another night offers me a banner with the kind of honesty nobody asks for, or a suite with a tray and an extra fork, or a man who can tilt a jaw with 2 fingers and make a track forgive itself, I hope I remember the handful of humiliating, useful acts that keep me almost honest. Put water on. Move the chair to the middle of the kitchen when words want to riot. Ask why before who. Hold the moment before contact and let it finish being a scene. Then wait for the key in the lock like it's a sound you can tune to. Let the hotel keep its invoices. Let the app keep its nouns. We'll keep being the address, or if we can't, At least the map that admits its misprints and still shows us home.